Ariana Dumbledore's life was marred by tragedy. A shy girl who could have followed in the footsteps of her brother's greatness, but was instead subjected to repress her magic after an attack by Muggle boys, leaving her unstable and dangerous. Not only did she kill her mother during an outburst, but Ariana lost her own life at the hands of her two brothers and Dark Wizard Gellert Grindelwald during a three-way duel. Her death caused great trauma and pain among her brothers, as it could have so easily been prevented. So what would happen if things had been different? What if Ariana Dumbledore survived? Ariana's entire life was tainted with misfortune, pain and tragedy. If we have to do this video justice, then I have to look at two possible scenarios that involve Ariana's survival. The first scenario is Ariana experiencing a normal life and never going through the attack from the Muggle boys. The other is Ariana surviving the three-way duel and how the following events will be different from the ones we currently are aware of. Both scenarios seem very interesting as they change the events that follow quite dramatically. So let's look at what would happen if Ariana Dumbledore survived scenario 1. Okay, so from what we're aware of, Ariana had a pretty normal childhood up until the attack at the hands of the Muggle boys. That seems to be the defining point in her early life that sparked the radical change. So if that attack never happened, then the first notable change would be her father, Percival, not being sent to Azkaban for his attack on the boys. Therefore, he wouldn't have died so early on. He'd have been alive and well. Percival was a good father, judging by his original sacrifice of his own freedom to keep his daughter safe. That leads me to believe that he'd have set a fantastic example not just for Ariana, but for Albus and Aberforth too. That leads me to my next question. Would the family have moved from Mold on the Wold? Well, I believe that even though the attack on Ariana didn't happen, I still believe she would have had close encounters displaying her magic near Muggles, and after so many years integrated with Muggles themselves, Percival and Kendra would both agree that a change would be good for the family. It also means that Ariana's development would be that of any normal magical child. Like her brother, she would be able to attend Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. And if I could choose any house for Ariana, I would say she'd be suited best to Ravenclaw. I just see her personally as a timid yet studious witch set for greatness like her brother Albus if only she applied herself. However, it's also important to remember that stressful environments don't sit well with Ariana. The stress of the attack originally drove her to repress her magic. So could any difficult experience in Hogwarts take its toll on her, like bullying or overly strict teachers? Could the pressure of living up to her brother's greatness affect her too? Regardless of the attacks happening or not, it appears she is and always will be fragile-minded. Just take Quirinius Quirrell for example. He was brilliant in school, quite gifted, yet the ridicule he suffered from other students drove him to the point where he dove into dark magic and joined with Voldemort in an effort just to make a point to his doubters. Now, I'm not saying that that could have happened to Ariana, but what I do believe is that she certainly had potential to become very powerful. So, with Ariana having a normal childhood, what about the rest of her family? Well, I've already mentioned how different her father's life would have been, and her mother would have also been in a much better place, not suffering from Percival's incarceration followed by his death, and also, most importantly, she would have been alive. They both would have had a relatively peaceful life. Aberforth, I believe, would have graduated Hogwarts and still gone on to run the Hog's Head, however this time a less bitter man. He would have still had the close relationship with Ariana that we know they had in the original timeline, but this time, Ariana would be her own person. Aberforth wouldn't feel so obliged to be so protective over her, and to be honest, I feel personally it would be such a sight to see Ariana have her own independence, because she's a character that was sadly dealt a harsh hand early on in her life. That just leaves us with Albus. How would his life have changed? Well, honestly, it would have changed quite drastically. Albus would have had the freedom to do all the things he wanted to do, see all the places he wanted to see. Don't forget, before he met Grindelwald, he had plans to go travelling with Alpheus Doge, but unfortunately that didn't happen as his mother died while he was about to depart for Greece. Had Kendra still been alive, Albus would have spent the next year possibly travelling with his friend, meeting new wizards, experiencing different wizarding cultures, and perhaps dabbled in certain types of darker magic in order to achieve a better understanding of why it was so dangerous in the first place. I believe with Greece being the first stop, he and Alpheus would have visited the temple of Herpo the Foul, an ancient Greek wizard, an inventor of the Horcrux. After his return from his world tour, Gellert Grindelwald may not have been in Godric's Hollow, as he was originally just stopping there for a short period of time while researching the Deathly Hallows. It was his meeting with Albus that led him to prolong his stay. Gellert would have most likely moved on depending on how long Albus took on his travels, meaning that if so, the two wizards wouldn't have met at such an early point on in their lives, which in turn means no feelings would have developed between the two, and in the timeline of Fantastic Beasts, Dumbledore could now take on Grindelwald without hesitation, as they had no past history. So that's what I believe would happen if Ariana survived with a normal childhood, no muggle attacks or anything dramatic. Now, we have the second scenario I mentioned, and that's if Ariana survived the three-way duel between Albus, Aberforth and Grindelwald. So right up to this point, the story hasn't changed like before. Percival and Kendra are still dead, Ariana is still unstable, and it's the exact original timeline up until this point. So the spell that was meant to kill Ariana missed her very narrowly, so narrowly that she lets out a scream in fear and falls to the ground, which in turn halts the duel. Aberforth screams at his brother, asking him, is this what he wants? Is this the price? Almost killing their sister to satisfy an ego in a duel. Albus would remain silent. Gellert, realising how angry his friend is at him for firstly attacking his brother, would use his master manipulator tactics to convince Albus that it's the current oppression of wizard kind has caused such conflicts like the duel that just ensued, that he, Aberforth and Albus are not enemies but brothers in arms and in wizard kind, that it was he and Albus's destiny to unite the Hallows, become the masters of death and finally reveal the wizarding kind to the muggle world. As much as I truly adore the character that is Albus Dumbledore, what we have to understand is that it was his experiences that shaped him into the person he became. With Ariana's survival, I believe he would have left his brother and sister in Godric's Hollow to achieve the goals that he and Gellert set out, while he used her death as a lesson to lead a more quiet life with controlled power. Now it would be her condition, her suffering at the hands of muggles many years prior, as the spark to ignite his inner passion to fight for what he believed was right. Don't forget that Gellert Grindelwald wasn't an evil man. Voldemort was, but Gellert wasn't. He genuinely wholeheartedly wanted the wizarding world to be free of hiding, to take their place in the world without misunderstanding and judgment. His methods were extreme, but his mission was not self-centered nor selfish. This is what hooked Albus so quickly. To put it in simple terms, had Ariana Dumbledore survived that duel, Albus could have very likely gone on to become just as infamous a dark wizard as Grindelwald was, meaning he would never have become the Hogwarts headmaster, nor discovered a certain Tom Marvolo Riddle in an orphanage. So with all that said, it's quite clear just how huge an effect Ariana Dumbledore surviving would have had on her family, more likely in the first scenario than the second. Albus's life seems to be the one that would have changed the most, but if you continue from the original timeline, even with those changes, the most obvious theory is that Ariana was indeed an Obscurial, which is all but confirmed by JK. The evidence is just so clear, meaning that Ariana wouldn't have survived for very long either way. However, her nature of death would have been different, and despite feeling her loss deeply, both Dumbledore brothers would not have fallen out in such a bitter manner, with Aberforth holding the grudge and Albus holding regret. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate your support. Everyone, notifications of uploads are more important than ever, so please, if you haven't already, turn those notifications on to make sure you're notified the moment my video goes live. Making videos is what I love to do, it's my dream and my passion. However, it does cost time and money to produce this content, so if you have $1 to spare to support me on Patreon in exchange for some exclusive unseen content, then you can click the Patreon link below or at the end of this video. Please only support me if you can afford it. And make sure to follow me on Instagram at InstaDNJ and on Twitter at PotterFolklore. Check out my other videos appearing on screen, and please make sure, most importantly, to hit that subscribe button. Thanks again everyone, and please have a great day.